who have been making a difference in their communities from the work they are doing on climate action. And we have been featuring their stories on the UNCC Learn website and social media platforms. And we thought it would be good to have them speak to our wider alumni network and engage and share their stories and experiences. So keeping the 1.5-degree goal alive with these UNCC Learn champions making a difference in the field is a new series. This is the first event that's happening. We'll be having 2 others in French and in Spanish. But we are in the English series here, and we have 3 amazing individuals who will be sharing their stories. And the objective of this session is for them to inspire all of you who have joined us to take climate action by showcasing their initiatives sharing, exploring potential areas of collaboration with you, and just an open space where we can all share our experiences and our ideas. So in the next slide, I'll just be showing you a couple of housekeeping rules so that we are all on the same page and avoid disruption. So as usual, keep your microphone off throughout the session, except for the sessions where we'll be having Q&A, and I'll prompt you when that will be time for you to switch on your mic in case you have any questions. But feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, have conversations in the chat with your fellow participants, and be polite with each other. This is a safe space. We want everybody to feel free to share their ideas. So we are right now almost 250 of us. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. Big welcome from us here at UNCC Learn. So we'll move to the next slide. So just a brief introduction as to who we are and who you'll be hearing from today. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Lisa Maina. I work with UNCC Learn. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. And I will be your moderator for this session for the next 2 or so hours. I am being ably assisted by my colleagues, Lucas Terra and Julia Vialba, who are helping us with the presentation and other technicalities. And we are being joined by 3 amazing champions today. We have Caroline Ouko, who is our UNCC Learn champion from Kenya. So Caroline, just a big wave and a big hello to the audience here, if you could unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Caroline, welcome. We also have Mariam Ekam. She's our UNCC Learn champion from Pakistan. Mariam, do you want to give us a hello?
Hi, everyone. So nice to have you all, such a big number of people, and so happy to have you all from different countries.
Great. Thank you, Mariam. And we have Jo Marie Francisco, our UNCC Learn champion from the Philippines. Jo, would you like to say hello to our audience? We'll be launching a poll on the Zoom platform. So you'll see a couple of questions pop up on your screen right now. We have 2 questions, and we want to know where you're connecting from, where you're joining from. Want to see which continents are represented here today. I can see a lot of people from Asia. Yes, we have the most from Asia right now. 42 participants. Okay, that's going up steadily. We have Africa represented here, Europe as well, North and South America. Great, that's fantastic. Central America, we don't have participants, but I'm sure there'll be. Feel free to write the courses that you've taken from the UNCC Learn platform on the chat. But it's really great to see such diverse representation from all over the world. It's our pleasure to have you all here and to see so many of you having taken a number of courses as well. So we'll keep this poll going for maybe another minute or so. I'll just quickly check the chat to see if there's anything interesting. All right. Lots of engagement on the chat. Thank you so much. I can see from Egypt, Pakistan, India, where else? Zambia, Uganda, India, Barbados, China. Wow. Philippines,
As well,
Afghanistan,
Bangladesh.
Thank you. Brazil, Taiwan. This is fantastic. Sudan, Mozambique, Nigeria,
Afghanistan.
Pakistan. Yeah, great. Somalia,
Melbourne, Kenya.
Kenya. Hello, hello.
Djibouti.
Djibouti. Great.
Nepal, Nepal.
Myanmar, Albania. Wow, this is amazing.
I'm from Sierra Leone.
Sierra Leone, Malawi. Great. So feel free to continue writing on the chat.
Afghanistan.
Thank you, thank you. So feel free to engage on the chat. Thank you, thank you. Let's now engage on the chat so that we can move on with our session. But this is fantastic to see so many countries represented here today. And if you see your fellow countryman or region person, not countryman, but country person, we're being gender sensitive, please feel free to engage as well. All right. So we will move on to the next session where our main agenda of the day is to hear from our champions. As mentioned, we have our 3 amazing champions. And to begin with, we are going to start with Caroline Ouko. So in this session, we're going to hear from the 3 of them. They're going to have a couple of minutes to share their experiences, what they're currently doing. And as they present, please feel free to write any questions you have on the chat. After this, we'll have a session where we'll be reading questions from the chat and the champions will be able to answer them. So feel free to jot down any questions you have as they come into your mind as the presentations go on. So first and foremost, we're going to hear from Caroline Ouko. So Dr. Caroline Ouko is a senior research scientist and is the acting deputy director at the Center for Training and Integrated Research in ASOL Development. She has over 17 years of experience in leadership, policy development, and facilitating change in the agriculture and environmental sectors. She's successfully designed and executed programs and research projects funded by the Eastern and Southern Africa Partnership Project, the National Centers for Competence in Research, Act, Change, Transform, among others in CETRAD, and the recently concluded Economic Valuation of Natural Capital in East Africa project funded by USAID and executed by Environmental Incentives. So Caroline developed an interest in climate change. She completed the introductory course on climate change in 2014. And as she grew interested in this area, she believes that one of the best ways to raise awareness on climate change and encourage climate action is by promoting climate change literacy, particularly among the youth. And in this context, she became a member of the Africa Group of Negotiators, and currently is a team member of the Government of Kenya negotiators following on the Action for Climate Empowerment track under the Paris Agreement. And she's also the Pangani Girls Alumni Association chairperson. And this association offers a unique opportunity to the alumni to plow back and give thanks by strengthening and rekindling the sense of community and companionship in her alma mater while building young girls for the future. So Caroline, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Sorry about that.
unmuting took a bit longer. And I'm very excited to be a champion for 2022 after undertaking the training at UNCC LAN. I understand most of you are alumni, and if you've participated in the UNCC training, I'm sure you are aware of the richness and the way the trainings are tailored to take care of most of us, even at starting, at middle, and even at the highest level, if you already know a lot about climate change. And thank you, Lisa. As Lisa said, my motivation is to ensure that young people are poised in a manner to bring change. This is because if I look at the African perspective, our population is quite youthful, and this is an advantage because the youth, we look at sustainability, but sustainability for who? You know, we look at future generations, and the youth have more time to make a difference if they have the skills and expertise and literacy, because you want you are able to be a change maker if you have the information which you can get through the UNCC LAN trainings, and also if you're interested, then you are able to package yourself as a change maker, focus on something you want, because it needs commitment, it needs you to put effort. And the reason the youth are better placed if they are climate change is because they'll strive to reuse, recycle, and also be able to reduce on wastage, and they have a longer time because they're looking at the future and they're still young. So you have that advantage of ensuring that sustainability is done. And additionally, the youth are very good in innovations, especially if I speak from here in Kenya. We've had quite a number of interesting innovations, IT-based, some not IT-based. And if you have some basic information about climate change, we know that the wicked problems, they need a lot of ideas, a lot of out of the box thinking. And when we use something like innovation, we will be able to address some of the issues. For example, if I take this issue of the refrigerator gas, I am sure that with time, we will get a solution. We all need the cold air and what have you, but we know in terms of emissions how that is. So one of the solutions is to get an alternative. And this is a challenge, and I'm sure our youth are able to do this. They only need experiential undertaking if we give them the enabling environment. And this comes in terms of policies. We all know that for us to address issues like climate change, the enabling environment, such as the regulatory framework, is key. And if we are able to address what the youth need, then their ideas can be quickly picked up, and this will be possible. Lastly, I just want to share about the negotiations which Lisa talked about. In terms of negotiations, there are some specific skills that can enable you to make a difference. I particularly just want to share 3 of them, which I've been using ever since I joined the group of negotiators. And these are commitment, relationship building, and communication. I'll just quickly share why. Unless you're committed, and you know, this one I'm tying to the youth issue, you will not be able to go a step or more further to ensure that you address the issues. Again, issues of negotiations is about who is on the other side. So you build relations so that you're in a better place to know when you have alternatives, when you have an area where you can maneuver, or when you have no alternative, and you have to take what is being offered because it's a consensus-based process. And lastly, communication is absolutely necessary, because unless you articulate the issues in a manner that the different people understand, and you're able to share, and you're able to convince, then you might let your team down or even let yourself down, because maybe you want to say something and you're not expressing it in the right way. So with that, I want to thank you very much, and I hope our sharing of what we do, how we do it, and how the LEARN process has enabled us to move a step or two further will also encourage one or two of you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Caroline. We have a couple of minutes still for you, Caroline. Maybe you could share your journey from 2014, from taking that introductory course. What was that kind of spark that lit the fire underneath your wing, so to speak?
It's my upbringing. I blame my upbringing, how I was socialized. I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya, and we used to walk to school. And we used to pass a river. There was a river on your way to school. We were very young. And in this river, there were so many animals. There were frogs, fish, the noises when a river is healthy, there are so many cries of different creatures. And as I grew up, I noticed that the river went silent. And, I was worried, and I went out of my way to ask why. And as I asked why, I also observed that there were quite a number of changes around the river. There was a new estate, 1 or 2 estates, and then there was a lot of pollution. The color of the water had changed. There was no more sound from the river. And I wanted to bring the river back to life. And, when you're young, you think you can do anything. But later in life, after you read and you know what goes on and how an ecosystem, watershed, if it is tampered with and degraded to a point where it is very costly to bring it back, then you appreciate why each and every one of us should act in a meaningful manner. We should always act knowing the consequences of our action. But all is not lost, because the little we do, all of us, one day it will be a critical mass and we will be able to make a difference. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing your story. I can already see questions on the chat coming in and interactions going on as well. So please keep them coming. And we'll answer them at the end once our 3 champions have made their presentations. So right now, I would like to welcome Mariam Ekan. So Mariam is a climate advocate and a founder of an NGO in Pakistan. She's an inspiring young lady, and she has always felt that she should do something about the climate crisis. And in this case, she has looked for opportunities to deepen her knowledge on the issue. And she came across UNCC LEARN, where she ended up completing 10 courses. And these courses provided her with the right set of skills and knowledge to help her establish her very own environmental organization called The Earth Needs Love. And Earth Needs Love is a youth-led and youth-focused organization that works in favor of environment, climate, and sustainable development. Mariam is also empowering women to act on climate change. Her organization recognizes the lack of opportunities women have despite their key role in addressing climate change and promoting nature conservation. And to overcome this problem, Earth Needs Love set up the Women for Environment initiative to raise environmental awareness and build the capacity of women. So at this juncture, I would like to welcome Mariam The floor is yours, Mariam, for your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This was such a comprehensive introduction, and thank you everyone who have joined us today. So, yeah, my journey with UNCC Learn has been incredible, and it all started when I was doing my bachelor's, and I have done my bachelor's in environmental sciences, but as I live in a city which is a very small city of Pakistan, so I always felt the need that the people here were not very well informed about the crisis. Secondly, they were not very much included in the decision-making process. And when I was in university, I was, more concerned that what else is happening around the world, because whatever we are taught in university, it is very theoretical, and we are not very well aware about the real-time challenges we have. So I kept on searching that what is happening, and what climate change is all about and everything. And I found UNCC Learn. And when I saw UNCC Learn, my journey never stopped, because it was so incredible. The courses were so comprehensive. I second to Caroline that they're so rich that you get all the basic information you need for a certain topic. And it was UNCC Learn when I realized that climate change is linked to children, climate change is linked to youth, and it is so comprehensive that climate change is an environmental problem, but it is a social problem, it is an economical crisis and everything. So this eye-opening realization happened when I started learning from UNCC Learn. And why I thought that my people were not included, because when I was studying at the university, I realized that the people from different cities and different countries were more heard. They were more well informed about the situations, and the people of my city were not that much. Like, I was having a very narrow that time I was having a very narrow scope of work. And then I realized that why not? Like, we are facing the crisis, we are having the floods, we are having all the disasters in Pakistan, so why not my people? And then I decided to establish an organization with my friends at university, and that we named it The Earth Needs Love, because of course it needs love. And we gathered the youth, and we started with 4 people. Now we are 300, and we started from the small city of Pakistan, that is Sialkot. We started from here, and we expanded to whole Pakistan, and then we also reached to our fellow countries from Bangladesh and India, and then we look forward for participation from Africa, because we have our second Caroline again, that Africa has wonderful, innovative people, and they are suffering, but they have innovation. They are brilliant, and they always come up with wonderful ideas. And then it all started, and now we are 300. We are continuously working on different projects. We are working on field. We are working online. We are working to educate and aware people, from children to the youth, and then beyond as well. And then we realized that, as Lisa also mentioned initially in my introduction, that women are a very powerful stakeholders, but still they were not getting the right opportunity and a right platform to express themselves. And we women are almost half the population of this world. And we cannot, sit back and wait for the men to work. We have to come in the field and work side by side to protect the environment. And women are more sensitive as well. I always share one of my readings I had, and it was a research in America that happened. I'm really sorry I cannot provide the reference. It was just a general reading I was having, and I learned that in America there was a research happened for 2 groups of children. One was one was a girls based, and other was boys, and both were educated about environment. And then the researchers surveyed their parents of both the groups, and they found out that the group of girls were transferring the knowledge more than the boys group. And the parents of the girls group were more well informed about the environmental challenges as compared to the parents of boys group, because women are very influencing. They always share what they feel, and they always share what they learn. So then I realized that women have a very powerful role here. Women are the leaders. Then we have to come forward to bring the change and to influence the families and to influence the communities. And this is how it all started. Now we are almost 40 women from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Kenya, Nigeria, and we have women from Kenya who are from the refugee camps as well. And we have worked in the refugee camps as well. And so it's so overwhelming. It has been so wonderful working since then. And why I always, like, initially I was more focused on children and youth, but then you know, the women comes in and people, I realize that we cannot, you know, I am not against men population, like men have to be aware as much as women, but yeah, because women are someone who are very influencing and we face the setback, so it is important to bring them forward. Moreover, if I talk about the other things I'm doing, so as a young person, I basically work on policies and advocacy and negotiations. I work with the Major Group for Children and Youth, and we mostly work on different policies related to plastics, related to chemicals and other stuff. Also, I'm now currently working as a fellow at an EP for the GEO7, that is a global environmental outlook, and I am working and putting forward the youth opinion, that what youth thinks and what should be into the context of learning in the coming years in the form of GEO7. So yeah, you can find out about the global environmental outlooks on Google. Until now, we have GEO6 and GEO7 is going to come soon. And moreover, if I talk about I should talk about, I guess, my education. So I told you that I've done my bachelor's in environmental science, and then I'm doing a master's in environmental science and engineering. And I also work for WWF, and there I work as a freshwater, and in the freshwater department as an officer of water sensitive cities. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much, Mariam. That's super inspiring. I think you've managed to do so much in this space, and I think it's really great what you're doing. I can see a lot of engagement on the chat as well, and we'll be reading out questions and feedback after this last presentation. So I would like to welcome Jo Marie Francisco. Jo is a Scientific Documentation Officer of the Implementation Oversight Division of the Philippines Climate Change Commission. He's the lead technical focal point for National Climate Change Expenditure Tagging, covering the climate budget of national government agencies, state universities, and colleges, as well as government-owned or controlled corporations. So Mr. Francisco has served as a concurrent technical working group member of the Climate Change Commission's Gender Focal Point System. And aside from this, he also provides technical support for developing the National GHG, or Greenhouse Gas Inventory, Gender and Climate Change, and Climate Change Statistics, International Climate Change Reports, and nationally determined contribution, monitoring, reporting, and verification. He's also the alternate gender focal point of the Philippines to the UNFCCC, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And he's one of our champions and has taken several courses on our platforms. So I would like to give the floor over to Jo to share his story as well. Welcome, Jo.
Yes, and again, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone. And it's very a pleasure and honor to me to share my knowledge on how the learnings here in the UNCC Learn helped me develop or apply my skills in my work. So just to give you a quick introduction of my work. So actually, I'm working in the Philippine Climate Change Commission. So this is part of the government institution under the Office of the President, and our lead work is the policy-making body of the government, tasked to coordinate, monitor, and evaluate programs on climate change. We're also tasked to ensure that all government climate change programs consider gender-sensitive consideration. So actually, the first thing that comes to our mind when we had this mandate is, how are we going to do this? How are we going to ensure that men and women are equally provided the services they needed? Because we all know based from the following reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that climate change is not gender neutral. It has differentiated impacts. And as Marian actually mentioned a while ago, some of those impacts are being aggravated, especially to the women groups, given their socioeconomic vulnerabilities and their traditional and cultural beliefs. That is why in the Climate Change Commission, what we always strive for is to ensure that gender analysis is always conducted in our programs to deliver the equal and distributed and the appropriate actions for the women and men. So based on my learnings, actually, I've taken first the introductory course on climate change, and then the gender and environment, and later on the gender and climate change, when I found a lot of information on how can I mainstream gender and climate change work in our system, in our government. So actually in pandemic, everything is in quarantine, everything is in lockdown. We cannot go out to do and to provide service to the field. So what we did at that time is to think of a way, how can we address existing gender issues in the climate change sector? So what we did is we tried to find list of issues that we can do while we're still in a quarantine. That is why I am very happy to share with you that during the pandemic, my team created a knowledge portal, an online portal dedicated for gender and climate change. So located in our commission's website, just go to what we call the NICDIS platform. So that is the NICCDIS, or the National Integrated Climate Change Database and Information Exchange System, or NICDIS. So it provides key data on climate change, including as dedicated link for gender and climate change, which I posted here. So as you can see, we already created the platform because knowledge on gender in the linkage of gender mainstreaming and climate action is still missing in the Philippines. That is why we've institutionalized a government platform dedicated for it. So you could see various resources like laws regarding gender and climate change in the Philippines, our commission resolution to strengthen and to instruct all government agencies that when they implement climate change, they consider gender consideration. We also put here our reports and plans regarding gender mainstreaming. So as you could see reports from international and even the national, and even some of the updates on how the Philippines progress when it comes to addressing climate change. And in the spirit of transparency, we already provided the contact details of our gender focal point system, including the GAD documents, or the gender and development documents of the Philippines. So lastly, as a concluding thought, based on my learnings, we're now moving on data-driven process to actually delivering the process in the Philippines. So in the Philippines, we're also implementing the climate budget tagging, and from the climate budget tagging, we provide government programs with an appropriate budget to address their impacts of climate change. So in the coming years, what we wanted to do is to ensure that when they implement climate change, they also consider gender mainstreaming in the process. And this is the system that we are trying to employ. So the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines is a tool developed by the Philippine Commission on Women of the Philippines to ensure that gender is incorporated in all government programs. And what we wanted to do hopefully by the end of next year is to develop a toolkit dedicated for climate change. And lastly, we want to continue to develop more information materials like this one to inform our stakeholders and the general public on knowledge on climate change. And I look forward to share my thoughts and even this UNCC learning, because I really learned a lot on how to mainstream gender in our work in the Philippine government, especially on climate change. Thank you, and I give the floor back to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Joe, for that. I think that's fantastic. It reminds me of, the saying of what's not counted is it budgeted for? Yeah, so I think data plays a very important role in ensuring that gender commitments are integrated, but are also budgeted for and accounted for in our climate plans and policies. So right now we will move to the question and answer session. I can see already there is so many questions, comments, feedback. that are ongoing in the chat, so keep them coming. We will try our best to answer them as much as we can. So to begin with, I will start by one of the first questions. I guess this is to Caroline. So someone is asking, hi, Caroline, as part of the negotiators, would you say we're making progress as Africa in terms of mobilizing resources for losses and damages and other adaptation interventions, especially for the fact that Africa contributes less than 4% of greenhouse gas emissions, yet are heavily impacted by climate change?
Thank you for that question, Lisa. Thank you for that question. You know, in this negotiation space, we are Africa, yes, but negotiation is a consensus process. And one of the greatest milestones during COP27 in Egypt, which is in Africa, the Loss and Damage Fund was agreed upon, and there's a process. What I've come to realize when I'm in this negotiation space is that people really don't have most of the information out there. And I can see that from this question, it's not about Africa making progress in getting loss and damage fund. However, it is the whole global world coming together, appreciating the importance of loss and damage and working towards it. That is the win. But the good thing is this loss and damage fund was agreed upon. Then there comes a process. You know, the UNFCCC is a convention, and a convention has a way of doing things. So I would urge the person who asked that question, we can have even a bilateral, but there's 2 or 3 slides that I would share, and it would make them feel that we've really made traction. So thank you, and I'm available to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for that response. And I'll also, in case Caroline, Joe, and Mariam are also following the chat and you really want to respond to a particular question, feel free to type it in response as well. There's a question here. I suppose this will be directed to Mariam. So how do you inspire the current day kids towards nature and environment?
Okay, so it is not very pleasing, but it was a time when I was doing an internship at a school, and I was given the task to educate kids about different topics, like different general topics. And there was a time when I showed them a picture of a turtle who was having a straw in its nostril. So the kids were very much touched about by seeing that. And a lot of them promised me to that they're not going to use the straw one again. So I think how I engage the kids. So I just show them the picture that, you know, you are living in this peaceful environment, but there are plenty of people who are not. So, say, for example, when I talk about water conservation, so in my city, Sialkot is very rich in freshwater resources. We have recharge zone everywhere. We get water recharged every year when glaciers melt, and we have freshwater table at a very higher level in our city. But I show them that there are some countries and there are some cities who are not having enough water for their drinking purpose even. So this is how I just instill the thought in them that you have this resource, but there are a lot of other people who are not. I show them pictures, I show them videos that how everything is happening around, because children have a very smaller vision. They have a very broad, smaller concepts about things. So when I show them different pictures of different things happening around the world, they have this sort of, okay, I have to save the water, I have to turn off the tap, I have to fix the leakage, I have to throw the wrappers in the dustbin. And this is how it all started. So yeah, I inspire kids by showing them different case studies, different things happening around the world.
Thank you so much, Mariam. Yeah, I totally agree. And there's a comment here that says it's important to integrate climate change education from the primary level of education so that while children are growing up, they will make sure to act as climate-friendly agents and help to shape the world positively. And just to mention, this is also part of UNC CELAN's work. Other than developing these e-courses on the platform, we also support countries around the world to develop climate change learning strategies and focus on climate education and integration of climate change into school curricula at all levels. So indeed, this is one of the proactive ways to, raise awareness amongst the children and the youth as well. I'll read another question here. Maybe this can go to Joe. Though some of the youth have awareness and wish to take action, they could not find the right opportunities to contribute. So how can we involve them without social restrictions and bring them forward in this discussion and in this space?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for the question. So actually what we do in the Philippines, especially for our youth partners, is we partner first in the level of government. So we have the National Youth Commission, and one of their projects on youth development is on climate change. So they invite actually youth leaders, they gather them and they provide training specifically on climate change in order to inform our youth on how can they contribute to the global cause of climate action. At the level of the NGO, you could also participate in those youth NGOs. Actually, at the UNFCCC, when we sit in negotiations, we have a chance to have a dialogue with the youth NGO. So they call themselves as YUMO. So they are a group of youth individuals, normally youth leaders from different countries, that shares common cause on addressing climate change. So you could just type in the internet youth NGO at the UNFCCC, and you could see some information how to contact them and how can you participate in them. Or in the other sphere of things, you could join the youth forum or any youth institution within your government and try to ask them what are the programs on climate change. Here in the Philippines, you could just go to the National Youth Commission or ask the Facebook page of the Climate Change Commission. And we are very happy to share information on how youth can participate to global climate action. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Joe, for that. Indeed, Diango, as the youth constituency, the UNFCCC is a great platform to collaborate with. Thanks for that. So I think I'll ask kind of a general question here for the three of our champions in terms of what are the challenges that you faced in your journey so far? What are some of those key challenges that you've come across, and perhaps how did you tackle them or come about them? So Caroline, maybe you could kick us off.
I'll borrow a statement which Mariam used about why she's now inclined more towards women. You find that there are some challenges which you face as a woman in leadership, not because of any bias. It is just how it is. You find that in conservation and in nature professions, it was dominated by men for so long that when you're a woman, you are always proving yourself. And this means you have to work harder, read more, and be very factual for you to move on. So this is a great challenge because you find that it's like you're defending, and it doesn't need to be like that, but it is just like that. And this is a big challenge, not only for Caroline, but for women in nature, in leadership, or women in conservation in leadership. And we nowadays use mentorship or role models to overcome this kind of challenge, and it is working. So it's also a good platform to share with the women who are in the audience that it has been done. Nothing is impossible. It has been done and you can do it. The only thing is that we learn from each other and we do it better. This is one of the greatest challenges. The other one is balancing family life and professional life, because there are expectations that you must do as a wife, a mother, you must do. So that balancing has been a challenge, because sometimes you are required to travel short notice, and then you have to really juggle and ensure that you deliver. So I'll share those two challenges and then hand over to my other champions.
Thanks, Caroline. Maria, would you like to share your challenges and how you overcame them, if you have yet?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge I faced being a citizen of a developing and you can say underdeveloped country is that the people lack education and awareness at first place. They do not understand that the crisis is here. Climate change is impacting them. If I see people from the southern side of Pakistan, I see that people are having floods, but they're not very sure that why they're having those intense floods. So we have to educate them at every level. We have to let them know that the problem is here, and we have to, question anyone who is in the power. So, they just call the disaster a natural call for disaster. They do not understand that all of this mess which is happening right now is human induced, and we can control it. So the first and foremost challenge I face that they lack education and they lack awareness. Secondly, I feel as a young person, I agree to Caroline that, yeah, women have their own constraint. We face the backlash, but as a young person, I feel the adults still need to be more inclusive for us. I feel that the adults who are in power, who are in decision-making places, they always mention this to us that they are hearing us, we are being heard and everything. But I think hearing is not something that is equivalent to listening. Like you're just listening to us. I'm speaking something and they listen to us and they just, forget about it. Being heard means that whatever I'm saying, it is having an impact in your decision. So this is something I feel that whenever I share an opinion with the government body, personal, or anyone who is in power, anyone who can make decision, I feel that whenever I say something or whenever my fellow people, young people say something, they listen to us, but they never include our opinion in anything. Like one of the most prominent example is that if you are aware about national biodiversity strategies and action plans, so every country is going to revise them. And we asked our government people that we young people from our country are wanted to be included in the consultation process. And they just said that then they were so what do we say, they were so ignorant to us that they never thought to include us. And they said that we don't know how to include them. We just consult with the decision makers. We just consult with the people who are older and who are researchers, but they don't want us to include. So yeah, the second problem after lack of education and awareness is the lack of inclusion for the young people. And how I have overcome it, I've not done it alone, of course. My organization is working on that. So what we do is that we do a national level consultation with all the young people of our country. Like we make sure that people from all the provinces, all the states are included. And then we have online consultation and in-person consultation. We gather their opinions and we compile it as a position paper or as a letter, and then we submit it to the ministries. So just to let the people in decision making power know that there is a youth body, there are young people in your country who want to make this opinions to be heard. So this is how I'm going to it, but this is not working at a very good level, but still at least our voices are being sent to the people who are in power. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, Mariam. Yeah, that's super insightful. Thank you for sharing. And Joe, lastly, over to you. What challenges have you faced?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, I do agree with Caroline and Mariam's challenge encounters that climate change is a development and intergenerational issue. Well, from my experience, it's kind of hard also speaking from perspective of youth, because when I entered the commission, I was back then less than 20 years old, and it's very hard to push for projects, especially that pushing for innovative projects might be hard as well in the government. But what can I share as a solution is that you need to find champion. You need to find someone in the government that is ready to listen for your project. And I'm very thankful that in our office, there's a lot of actually women leaders that is very happy to accept innovative solution. That is why at the moment we have this platform, we have a climate data for specifically for gender, because that is one of the solution that I'll pitch, that we don't have any data on gender and climate change. Why not we set up one so people could know more about it and link about it? The second is, as I've told you, that climate change is a developmental issue in the Philippines. It's actually a survival one for us, because some of the islands are getting lost, people's lives are getting lost, their jobs and their livelihoods and even their future are at stake. So what we're doing, since I'm working in the government and our client is the government, when it comes to budget submission, I always ask them that, hey, did you already have a budget to build capacity or to raise information on climate change? We are now in the information age, and information is very vital. And having a government, having a mandate, or let's say a power to ask them to budget or to put a money dedicated for climate change is a very big solution already. And that is, I think, one of my contributions, since I do review all government budgets on climate change. And I think that is very vital to kickstart the process, since it is normal that for the government to kickstart all information campaign on climate change. And I think it is working in the Philippines, because some of the government that are previously not working in the Philippines are now truly devoted in climate change. Just to give you a quick information, I am now giving a capacity building here in the Bangsamoro region. Before, it's a conflict-ridden area, but now we are transitioning to a peaceful solution. And one of the peaceful projects that we are building with them is through climate change information. And I'm very happy to report that they are very welcome and want to know more. How can they contribute to the climate change discussion? So there you go, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing that. Indeed, data is powerful, and it's a challenge that is facing governments around the world, data-informed policies, and especially where there are key gaps relating to gender, to marginalized communities and the effects they are facing from climate change. I think this is super inspiring to hear how you in the Philippines took this approach on. So there's a lot of questions. I see there've been 2 hands up, or from Rifki and Muhammad. You'll be the first 2 that I'll call upon during the next Q&A session. But for now, we will move on to our second session of this event, where we will have another poll. This time it's going to be on Mentimeter. So please go to www.menti.com on your browser, on whatever device you're using, and type in the code 16609571. So it's on the screen right now. So once you go to menti.com, type in that code, or you could scan the QR code on screen right now. So we'll give you like a minute or so to join Menti, the Menti poll. We have a couple of questions that we'd like to hear from you. We've had a lot from our champions, but we also want to hear from your side as well. So the link is on the screen. I can see Edmond asking for the link. It's on the screen and it's been put on the chat as well. It's www.menti.com. Once you get there, type in the code 16609571, or you can scan the QR code and it will take you directly to the website. And Lucas has kindly shared his screen to show us the Mentimeter poll. Our first question, we want to ask you and hear from you, how are you taking action on climate change? So as I've said, we've heard the inspiring stories from our champions, and we want to hear how you guys in the audience are taking action in your communities, in your countries. So I can see already we have 20 responses. Keep them coming. So someone says, I'm a vegetarian. Great, great. That's great. So no meat in your diet. I try to recycle and reduce plastic. As a high school student, I have founded and I'm currently managing an environmental organization. Great. So I think you've learned a lot from Mariam's experience as well. We are doing energy management to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. That's great. Collecting trash and recycling and trying not to use chemical things and planting trees. Someone is in building the climate change issues in school curriculum. That's fantastic. I've seen a lot of discussion on the chat of how do we get kids involved? How do we integrate? How do they learn from the get-go? So that's really great that you're doing that. Leaving the car at home and using other non-motorized forms of transport. That's great. Using electrical cars. As an agricultural specialist working for World Bank and working on climate resilient agricultural practices, that's fantastic. Capacity building and training on migration, environment, and climate change. So you train in this area. This is a really important area, especially in our current global climate. Migration, whether it's due to climate impacts or conflict around the world. So this is great that that's what you're focusing on. One of the advocates for the Going Green campaign within our office at World Vision in Zambia. That's fantastic. Focusing on children and youth. Yes, that's another action that's been taken. Supporting local businesses and products. Indeed. So that's supporting your fellow local businesses. That's fantastic. Teaching the youth both formally and informally, by understanding the issue better and making others aware and encouraged to take action. This is great. So understanding it yourself and then spreading this awareness. It could just be amongst your friend group, amongst your family members, your immediate community members as well. That still makes a difference. Organic gardening. What else can I see? I try to be an ecological minimalist. Okay, that's great. I wish you could have expanded on that a bit more, but feel free to do so in the chat. So as a young student on my 3rd year at university, it's become my concern to start taking action since the environment has been concerning lately. And I start by the simple things like recycling. Yeah, I think one small step, just start by one small step and then it gradually grows from there. So that's great. Okay, on to question 2. What are the biggest challenges you are facing right now to act on climate change? So we want to hear from you. We had from Mariam and Caroline and Joe on the challenges that they face so far. So we want to hear what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now. Learning from actions taken by my company. Okay. All right. Financial strains. Yeah, indeed, that can impede the action on climate change. Ignorance of society, lack of government intervention, ignorance from people again, lack of proper education and spread of false information. A big challenge. We're living in the age of misinformation. We're getting information with so many sides and some of it is not factual. So how do we navigate that? Unregulated tourists in my place in Nilgiris, India. Okay, that comes with its own challenges. Controlling carbon dioxide emissions in sea transport, right? I think maybe that's the industry that you're working in. Indeed, that can be a huge challenge. Lack of quantified evidence on climate impact, risk of war. I mean, I think this goes without saying in the time we're living in, even right now. Changing people's mindset. It's mindset changes. It's a very challenging thing to do. So indeed, it can restrict your actions on climate. Lack of engagement at my company, accountability, awareness, and indifference. That is true. That is true. Economic and social systems not adapted to this challenge. Yeah, there are still some sectors playing catch up. So indeed, that can be a challenge. There's a big gap in understanding. Also, as the impact is slow, people cannot relate cause and effect. It's the boiling frog example that Al Gore used. Indeed, if you put a frog in water and start to boil it, by the time it's boiling, the frog won't know it's boiling, So that's a great metaphor to use. Family restrictions on my wish to participate in climate change actions. Yeah, so resistance can come from as close as family members, indeed. Lack of expertise on climate change, intergenerational ideology, information literacy in communities, bureaucracy in government, high prices of alternative energy. These are all big challenges that you're facing, indeed. Lack of funding for awareness promotion, taking action to reduce air pollution, and no proper support in a fast manner. So it's slow, it's very slow, and that can impede action on climate change. So I think keep them coming. We will, the Menti will still be on. We can read maybe one or two more before we move to our next session. Continued water scarcity in towns and rural areas. Apathy on the part of both policymakers and a section of citizens. That is true. So thank you very much for participating in that poll. It's really great to hear from you as well. I think this also goes to inform the work that we're all doing. And so we are going to move on to our next session, which is a roundtable discussion with our champions. This is an opportunity for us to learn from them, to engage. So we'll enter this session where I'll be posing a couple of questions to each of the champions, and they'll be able to respond in this way. So if you have any questions, as usual, that come into your mind, please feel free to put them on the chat. We have a lot of them, and we'll try our best to answer as much as possible after this roundtables session. So we will move to our three champions once again, Caroline, Mariam, and Joe. So to begin with, I'll start with Caroline. So in your experience as a government official working in the policy space as an action for climate empowerment advocate in Kenya, you've already shared some of your personal challenges, but what are those key challenges in the policy making process and as well as implementation? What are the key challenges facing this sector in the climate change space, and how to overcome that as well?
Action for climate empowerment has 6 elements. I'm just giving this background so that we appreciate the expected policy arena. The 6 key elements are education and training. I've seen in the charts a lot of emphasis on education from preschool. So action for climate empowerment looks at education and training. It also looks at public awareness and public access to information, and also public participation and international cooperation, also referred to as partnerships. So in terms of the policy arena in order to be able to deliver on action for climate empowerment. You find that it is interdisciplinary. We need coordination because we know in most governments that sectors have policies. And so this coordination aspect is a very big challenge because when you look at the issues which needs to be addressed under climate change, all sectors, it cuts across all sectors, health, you name it, education, everything. And so that need to coordinate policies so that we get everybody with a common understanding and a common vision, and then we deliver. I normally feel that this is one of the weakest points because we learn, like we get trainings from the UNCC Learn, institutions of higher learning, and also there are many ideas which are coming up. After this, that synthesis and leading into implementation, which is what you asked, there is that disconnect. However, all is not lost because most governments, for example, the government of Kenya, decided to have one directorate to coordinate all matters climate change. This helps a lot. It's the first step, but these things cannot change overnight. But this process of coordination is a real weakness. The policies are coming from various sectors, and so people are running with what works, but sometimes you need just everybody pulling to a common vision. So that's what I can say. In terms of suggestion for how we can overcome this, a process like having a central area, but with decentralized implementation, that I think will work best. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks so much, Caroline. I think, yeah, these are challenges that are facing a lot of policymakers. I think that coordination of climate change, it's such a challenge or an issue that impacts a lot of sectors, if not all. So how do you then coordinate? And on this note, then I'll move to Mariam and ask, how do you, in your work with your organization, how do you collaborate with other stakeholders like government agencies, other non-governmental organizations and local communities to implement sustainable projects to achieve your organizational goals?
Okay, so starting from the government, so what we do is that whenever we go to any conference, whenever we go to any conversations happening around the country or in the country, whenever it is happening, we always make sure that some of our representatives attend that conference, attend that gathering, and make sure to have a good conversation with the people who are in power. So, we let them know that we are doing this, we are doing work in this domain, and whenever something comes up, so they should have us in their mind. So as one example, I would say that we have a directorate of biodiversity in Ministry of Climate Change, and I, along with my fellows, met the personnel during COP15 of UNCBD. And we introduced us to them, and we had a good conversation with them. We exchanged our number, and what helped us is that afterwards, like when we return back to our country, so when there is any opportunity related to biodiversity, or whenever there is something related to climate change, they always make sure to send us an email about that this is happening and we need you. So yeah, this is how we started collaboration with them. Secondly, we are also working on water with another youth organization on water that is called Unify. And what we are doing in that work is that we have did a youth consultation for water, and now we are going to submit it to the Ministry of Water Resource. So we just start connecting with them, we just start talking with them and let them know that we are doing something, and then we submit our opinions to them. As far as the other NGOs are concerned, what we do is that we open call for collaborations. And say, for example, if we are planning to have a series of sessions on women and solid waste, so we open a call for collaboration and we invite other organizations to submit that if they are interested to participate in awareness session as speakers or as participant or whatever they want. So they show their interest that that organization is interested to send their speakers to one of our awareness session. So this is how we build connections, and we engage more and more organizations, and we use the intellectual what do we say, intellectual resource for ourselves. And if anybody needs us to explain something, or if somebody needs us to build the capacity, we are always available. And we work like projects, like if we have World Environment Day, so we worked on a role of women related to solid waste. So then we engage with a couple of organizations who work in that domain, and they provided us with the speakers, and that helped us to equip our people with knowledge. Similarly, if you're working on tree plantation, so we engage people from different organizations who do tree plantation. Say, for example, that there was a case when we were doing tree plantation in one of our province called Balochistan, and there one of our members went to Ministry of Forest, and the member went there, and when she asked them that we are going to plant trees, so we need support in that. So what Ministry of Forestry did, that ministry provided us with the saplings to plant that were indigenous to our area. So this is how we initiate collaborations. This is how we work on that. And as far as the communities are concerned, so because I mentioned earlier that we have people from all around the place. We are not centered to one city. Like, we have many people from bigger cities, but we have people from all around the world. So what our members do is that they go to a different organization, they go to communities and collaborate with them. Say, for example, if you want to work in Mardan, which is a city in Pakistan, so what they did, the members of the Earth Reserve went to university and asked them that we want to work on this particular thing. Say, for example, it was about, I guess it was related to wash. So what they did, that went to the university, they asked that we are working on this. So university engaged us, engaged their environmental clubs with us. And this is how we collaborated with them. And they brought us to the community, which is mostly affected with the sanitation issues. So we just keep on looking around who can help us, who needs our help, and which member is willing to help us. So this is how it all works. Like, it is not a very set of not a set of proper SOPs that we work on, but it is just a random thing happening, and we keep on doing whatever we get. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Mariam. I think, yeah, it requires you to have that passion and to always have your ears on the ground to keep abreast of what is going on in the community, and just always, linking up with organizations, government agencies, and other partners as well in this space. So thanks for that. Joe, you've done such amazing work with through your role at the Philippines Climate Change Commission. So would you be able to share with us what inspired you to pursue this this career focusing on the nexus of gender and climate change?
Thank you, Lisa. So actually, what inspires me to work on gender and climate change is, at first it was, I think, a true eventful fate. I was not assigned really in the first place to work on gender. It's just so happened that at that time, we receive a memorandum from the Philippine Commission on Women that we need to do more on gender mainstreaming. And our minister back then asked me to work on this, and that actually inspires me from a mere compliance when I'm trying to study gender and climate change, including the lectures in UNCC Learn. I get to know that there's a lot of things to do, particularly on gender. Like in the Philippines, it's very rare for us to see a people knowledgeable or person knowledgeable both on gender and climate change. And because these two concepts do exist and being championed in the Philippines in various fora, but it's very hard for us to link these two concepts. Like, how can you say that, for example, for the discussion on women, there is a climate change impact, or in the men. Actually, in the Philippines, there is already an increasing trend that women are now ahead when it comes to climate action. And what we wanted to achieve in the Philippines is to equalize this particular norm, because in gender equality, we need to see all gender identities. We're also looking in the Philippines, how can we help our fellow citizens in terms of their LGBT groups. We are now recording cases and gender issues related to climate change on LGBT and also to men. So what we wanted is to address all this function, and I'm very happy to share that these kinds of social issues that are now passing the border of very scientific nature of climate change is getting my interest, and I'm now sharing it actually to my colleagues here, not only in the CCC, but also in other government agencies. So we could create more people in the government that could work further on gender and climate change, particularly in their respective mandates. So we could build more, not only of champions, but also a group of doers that could mobilize the government in equalizing the gender issues in the era of climate change.
Thanks so much, Joe. I think you raised such an important point, you know, like on gender and climate change. People know about gender, people know about climate change, but how do those two interact and interface? And I think another challenge is, you know, not just in our organizations, but throughout government is, you know, this tendency of working in silos and not knowing what the other person is doing. And one of the key opportunities that the climate crisis has presented is breaking down these silos and encouraging this more collaborative spirit to ensure that the climate change is being addressed across the board. So thank you so much for sharing your inspiration. So Caroline, back to you. I know you shared those three skills on commitment, relationship building, and communication, especially as a negotiator in the UNFCCC process. But are there any other key skills or qualities that you have found valuable, not only in your role as a negotiator, but in your role within government and also as a woman, you know, taking action on climate change?
Something else which has come through the experience of negotiating is the issue of persistence. You find that this climate change discourse, it began some time back. And you really need to look at the historical discourse, the current, so that you are aligned to the future using the circumstances you are in. So the issue of persistence has come handy. For example, if you follow any of the themes, for me, the action for climate empowerment is the one I am following. You find that there is so much which has been done over the years, and the programs have changed and lessons have been learned, and people have picked what is best practice and moved on and molded it. And you can only be impactful and successful if you look at what has been done, how it has been done, what you can do better. So that issue of persistence, for me, I find it very good, but it is one of the gaps for especially negotiators from Africa, because you find out people change, they change jobs, or they move to maybe from government to another workspace, and then that link is cut, and it has a ripple effect because the other person coming in has to quickly catch up. So that's also something which I've realized that it is very important. And this is also ties to the youth component, because if you start this process when you're young, you will be able to make a difference, because in the next 10, 15 years, you will be able to see what can and what cannot happen. And climate action is for all of us, for all spheres, all stakeholders. We need to do something. So that call has to be made in the right way. I think I saw one of the questions in the chat. It's just, who are you talking to? How are you talking to them? And then using something they can relate to. This really helps a lot. That's what I can add, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. I think something you've just mentioned towards the end there is that, we can all do something about it. So there was an interesting comment in the chat. Someone was asking, how can we reverse the rise of global average temperatures when all the biggest polluters, or the ones who are polluting the most are just thinking about money? So again, I think it's a twofold situation where indeed there's a lot that needs to be taken from that level of those who are polluting the most, but also this individual action, because we are also the consumers. We are also demanding what is produced in the market. So I think we have a big voice that we can make use of. And in addition to that, I think the skills that you've mentioned, these are kind of mostly soft skills, and they really do add value on top of the technical knowledge that you gain from taking these online courses, for example, on the UNCC Learn platform. So I think it's one area where we also have to pay attention to building our soft skills. How do we communicate? How do we build networks and relationships in this space as well? So thank you so much for that, Caroline. And Mariam, over to you. So as a young professional, you mentioned working with youth and empowering women in the continents of Asia and Africa and elsewhere around. What role do you think education and awareness play in mobilizing youth action in climate change?
Yeah, so I think when we work on education and awareness raising, it always works for knowledge dissemination. It equips the youth with the knowledge and understanding of the climate and environmental related issues we are having right now. Secondly, it develops critical thinking and problem solving skills in youth, that this is the crisis happening, this is climate change, this is environmental disaster surrounding us, and these are the solutions we can bring in. Say, for example, like initially, not dating back to many decades ago when people used to do this, like separating their wet waste and composting it. But now the young people who are getting educated about environment and then see the massive solid waste issues surrounding them, they know that we have to separate our waste and compost one part, the wet part of it, and recycle the drier part. I know many developed countries are doing so, but there are many countries like mine who are developing. So, this is the problems, and then awareness comes with the solution to that. Thirdly, I believe that when we educate young people, they come up with the advocacy and engagement practices, and they become the advocate of change, and they can engage in activities such as join the environmental clubs, they participate in protest, or they work with organizations, their local organizations who are working to protect the environment. Most importantly, I feel when we educate and aware people, we see a behavioral change in them. So I would like to quote one of the example of where I work. So I work at WWF, and we have a project in 2 cities of Pakistan where we work on water sensitive initiative. Like we are making cities water sensitive. And what we have done, that we aware the people constantly, and what this has bring, that the people have a behavior to conserve water on their own. So whenever we aware people about something, they develop this behavioral change and they adopt the eco-friendly practices. Moreover, we see young people who are involved in policy and decision making. They know that when we want to bring a difference beyond the individual capacity, we have to engage the people who are in the decision-making roles. So they get involved in that, like people like Caroline and Joe, who are working in negotiation processes. So they know that the policy thing is worthy and we have to bring forward our opinion. So when they got educated, they got that awareness that this is something happening off. So they got themselves involved in policy and decision making. Moreover, whenever we educate young people, they find that career opportunities in that. Say, for example, if I talk about my fellow people who are of my age, so I see that when they graduated, they were well aware that they have the issue of solid waste in their city. So what they decided to establish an institute which can recycle waste for them. So, people start finding their opportunities, their careers in eco-friendly practices. And lastly, I believe that whenever we educate people, whenever we aware masses, we always prepare them to build their resilience and make them adapt to the climate change that is happening. So, the knowledge is essential for building resilience and adapting to a changing climate. And this education and awareness plays an instrumental role when it comes to youth with the knowledge, skills, and motivation to become the environmental champions of this world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam, for sharing that. Indeed, I think those are all important points. Joe, I'd like to ask you, from your many accomplishments so far, are there any highlights or a standout experience that you've had as your role, whether it was as the National Gender Focal Point to the Philippines of the UNFCCC, maybe in those processes of the UNFCCC or climate negotiation or any other within your professional life? Any standout experience that you'd like to share with us?
Perhaps two things. First is on climate budget tagging. So we're very keen on ensuring that all government agencies in the Philippines do prioritize climate change and do propose budget. So for what we did in our team is to share information on climate change. Every year during the budget call of the Philippines, we build and deliver capacity building to government agencies, even those working with the peace and security, the trade and services, every government agency, we do believe that they have an opportunity to contribute to the climate action. So we begin on building their capacity, and we're very happy to report that when we started this climate budget tagging monitoring in 2017, we only have 45 agencies out of 360. And right now we're reaching 210 or almost 70%. And this contributes to a huge increase of climate budget in the Philippines. But I do recognize that this is not only my accomplishment, but rather the accomplishment of our team here in the Climate Change Commission and with other government agencies in terms of delivering it. The second is on data. Being a gender focal in the UNFCCC, what we are focusing right now is building on data. In many gender reports and in many COP negotiation, they always highlight the absence and the limitation when it comes to gender differentiated impacts of on climate change. And what we want as the Philippines is to contribute to the story and to the discussion. We are planning by this year to submit our official position that contains every parties and even non-parties story when it comes to climate change. How are they being impacted? How are they being affected? Actually, just to share with you, last week in the Philippine Climate Change Commission, we've just awarded 10 notable women leaders in the grassroots in their development of resiliency. So we want to increase those information so we know what other sectors or what are the things that we need to address, what lessons learned can we learn from, and what are the milestones or challenges that we need to recognize. So that is the focus in our track in the UNFCCC Gender. How can we build more information towards a gender-responsive climate future? Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. Yeah, that's brilliant to hear about the awards you've given to those, was it 10 women? That's fantastic. If there's like an article that you'd like to share on the chat, a link to an article on that would be great. So to wrap up this roundtable session, I'll just ask one final question to all three of you. Maybe just take a minute each. I've seen many people saying, asking about the platform, how many hours you spent, how many courses you take, how did you find the UNCC Learn platform in the first place? So maybe you could share with us how your experience with the UNCC Learn courses, how that has helped to shape your understanding of climate change and its impacts in your various countries or communities. Just a minute each. Maybe we'll start with Caroline.
Thank you. You know, this issue of knowledge, you're always thirsty to gain more knowledge so that you can perform better. And the UNCC Learn started bringing very interesting courses a long time ago. And I took part in the introductory climate change course, as well as during COVID, they had a whole, you know, I don't know that it was 6 months or more. It looked a lot, but the information was very good, very interesting, and very interactive. And so some of us, we got this information through the internet. We engaged and we ensured that we don't miss any course. And what we've learned, because it's current, it's dynamic, it's comprehensive, it has really influenced our deliberations and our delivery. So I can encourage all of you to continue taking part. And if you have not started, you start. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Caroline. How about you, Maria?
So as I mentioned before as well, that I was so curious about the real-time issues, because the universities they are teaching us very theoretical and basic knowledge. So if you want to expand our knowledge and what is happening around us with the relevant case studies, this helps a lot. And I searched on Google that about climate change courses and stuff, and I found UNCC platform. And there I remember my first course was of sustainable finance, and this was the entirely new concept for me. And I started my journey with that. And then I did a course on advancing on REDD+. And then I came across to a course that was like climate change and children. I learned about climate change and gender. And this is how the organization began to work, like for children, then for gender. So it was every other course was influencing my work in my organization, because I was learning a new dimension of what I was working. So when I started the organization, it was a general youth organization. It was youth focused. But when I learned about that, how women are disproportionately impacted by climate change, and I learned about the gender lens about climate change, there was a whole new world for me. And this is how UNCC's courses helped me a lot, because the courses are, you're all alumni, and you all will agree that courses are very interactive. The interface is very nice. You can, I remember I have a very longer commute from university to my home, and it takes almost 1.5 hours for me to reach back to home. So what I used to do was that I used to open the course on my phone, and I used to keep on learning. And my friends were like, why you are always doing something on your phone? And they never knew that I was learning about the gender lens of climate. They never knew that I was doing something about sustainable diet. So it is such a rich experience. And I will always encourage you all to take as many courses as you want, because knowledge is something that polishes you for the future. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Thank you so much for that. And Joe, in a few seconds, could you tell us your
sure.
experience?
So perhaps I could summarize it by using the word fun. So fun means F for flexibility, because it's very easy to just click the website that you've posted here, and you could just choose in a catalog on what courses can you check in the UNFCC Learn. U means understanding. They're very accommodating in terms of providing us knowledge, basic information on climate change, and even country experiences and how can we learn from one another. And less nurturing. nurturing because UNCC platform give us this kind of webinar for us to share our experiences and to create more champions in the future. So this summarize my experience in the whole UNCCC. It's fun actually.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, for that, leaving us on that good note. So indeed, the courses, they are free, they're self-paced, so you can take it at your own time. And the courses have certificates at the end once you successfully complete the final assessment. So now we'll enter our second last session of the event, where we'd like now to hear your actual voices for those of you who can. So this is the opportunity you have to raise your hands, switch on your microphone, and ask any particular questions you have to our three champions. Indeed. So I see we have Parveen, who's had his hand up for like 30 minutes. I don't know if blood is still circulating down your hand, but Parveen, if you're with us still, please go ahead and ask your question. And if it's directed to a particular champion, please let us know who that is as well. Okay, Parveen's hand has gotten tired, so I guess we'll move on to Dilly. Dilly, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Especially many thanks. I got an opportunity to hear some experience from the champion. My little bit queries and more knowledge I want is there any tool, especially for Joe? Is there any tool you have developed to analyze the gender issues in the climate change? If you have, then it will be helpful for me to analyze gender issue in climate change.
Thank you, Dilly, for your question. So actually, when it comes to gender tools related to climate change, specifically for climate change in the Philippines, we haven't had one. What we perhaps I could share to you what are the existing gender analysis tool that we use as a proxy to evaluate and assess climate action in the Philippines. Actually, to share with you, as mentioned a while ago, we are now on a journey to develop a specific tool for gender and climate change, specifically on how are we going to say that all projects are gender responsive, gender sensitive, or in the negative way, it doesn't contain any gender. So perhaps in the chat, I could share with you some of the information on the gender analysis. Great, I'll send you an email.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joe. I have just mentioned my email, so you can, if it would be helpful if you could send. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you, Dilly.
Can you hear me? I have a question.
Who's speaking? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Das from India. I worked in aluminum industry, which is a hard to abate sector with carbon dioxide emissions is a great challenge. And because this aluminum smelting is a energy intensive process. So I put in chat box this question: what is the progress with respect to carbon capture and storage technology? Is it successful on industrial scale? I know research is still going on, and what is the progress of this carbon capture storage? Because that is a great solution for the carbon dioxide emission, minimizing carbon dioxide emission in aluminum electrolysis process.
All right, Das. Thanks for that. Joe, did you want to respond to that?
Okay, so actually, that is part of the things that we're looking in the Philippines, carbon capture storage, particularly in aluminum. Well, just to share with you, at the Philippines, we don't have a significant amount of emission when it comes to aluminum production. Perhaps what can we say is at the level of the UNFCCC, I think for us, a developing country, we are deeply care and we're facilitating and actually advocating at the international level for the developed countries to give us the technology under the means of implementation, to share us how can we use those technology to capture carbon in terms of aluminum production, for example. Because to be honest with you guys, it's a very expensive technology and the know-how to develop this is not affordable for us, a developing country like the Philippines. So what we always advocate in the international level at the UNFCCC is to always ask for those developed countries to give us those technologies or to share that in the name of international cooperation as enshrined in the Paris Agreement. For now, what can I say is there's a lot of technological development. I think you could check the IPCC 6 assessment report on mitigation pathways, and it contains information on carbon capture technology, and it will be helpful in your research on that matter. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Joe. I think that captures your question well. We have Maua. Maua, please unmute yourself and direct your question. You're still muted.
You said IPCC.
Please type in the chat if you have any further questions, kindly, so that we can continue. Thank you. Maua, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'm on transit to Mombasa, but I hope I'm audible enough. Actually, my question is directed to you.
Okay, go ahead. That's fine.
When you talk of climate advocacy, it encompasses of various activities involving different sects of people, that is the youth, people with disabilities, across all parts of the globe. And I know you're aware that in most of the counties here in Kenya, there are a number of things that the youth are doing. And out of inspirations and motivations, if the youth and self-help groups want or are carrying out their activities, how should they get in touch with people of your caliber, so that at least the community sees that we are one people speaking the same voice and our agenda is one? That's my question, as simple as that. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Maua. That's my fellow Kenyan. Thanks for that question. Yeah, I think there's so much going on, especially in terms of youth leading the way on climate action. There's so much happening, especially at grassroots level. And I think it's inspiring to kind of see people taking that individual action. And I do understand the challenges sometimes in those stories kind of not flowing, but going upwards, up the chain of decision making, if it's government, if it's other partners as well. But I think through platforms such as this and as UNCC Learn, we're also trying to reach out as much as possible through these kind of event series. We also have for this current program phase that we're working on that runs till 2025, we have a focus on youth and working and learning through youth in climate action, and trying to identify platforms where they can exchange ideas, but also build their skills and knowledge on certain topics. So indeed, we are working towards that. And of course, please feel free to jot down any contacts that you have that would be helpful for us to reach out to. And also just gather these stories of impact of change. I think stories are also powerful ways of communicating what's happening on the ground. Thanks for that. Next, we will hear from Maulik. Maulik,
yeah.
Please unmute yourself.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I am really inspired to see that how the climate change UNCC lessons have inspired the climate champions, and not only they have enriched through the lessons, they are also so happy to do it. If it is quenching the thirst for knowledge for Caroline, then it is real time, if I'm not mistaken, real time updating for Mariam. And it's simultaneously learn and fun game for Joe. It's very, very interesting. And I also feel very inspired. And my question to all three champions that for climate change, adaptation, mitigation, and also for sustainable development, circular economy is the way. So how do you think that the UNCC lessons we can infuse more and more into the youth and generate the climate the climate change champions in a greater number to channelize our waste to the recycling units, because we really don't have much time left. Thank you.
Thanks, Maulik. I would advise maybe Mariam to take that question just because of time rather than all three. If Mariam, you could take that question for us. And then we'll have two more people, Ellie and Mohammed. Thank you.
So circular economy is a very big concept, and it comes with a lot of loopholes, a lot of concerns and considerations. But as far as circular economy for an individual is concerned, as you mentioned, that we can send something to recycling unit. So I would like to share one of my experience that I think since I think for 4 to 5 years, I haven't thrown any plastic bottle in dustbin. I haven't thrown any metal product in dustbin. And my father always makes sure to send that to a recycling unit, and we get money out of it. Like, yeah, we sell it, we sell it. So whatever the plastic material is, whatever the metal material is, whatever, if it is a glass or something, we always make sure to send it to the recycling unit, and we get paid for this. And this is how, we are making sure to reduce plastic bottles from the waste stream as much as possible. And all the credit goes to my father. So I think this is one of the initiative I have taken at my home. And this is how I'm contributing to, the not sending the waste into the waste stream, but to recycle it and use it again for some other cause, and not putting it in the waste stream and polluting the environment. So yeah, I think I have answered your question, but still, if you have confusion, so you can write it in the chat and I can respond to you there.
Yeah, thank you, Mariam. And I know our champions will write their contacts on the chat as well in case you have any specific questions to them. So I'll take, we have Ellie and Mohammed. If you could keep your questions really short so that we have 1 minute left for this session before we wrap up. Ellie, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, maybe I'll have one question then, maybe to the three of the champions. What tools or metrics are they using to measure progress in terms of for climate change? Tools or metrics, maybe especially for us who are in developing countries. I'm from Kenya, so maybe I would like to understand the tools they use to measure progress, so that whatever action they take, at least they measure what need to be achieved, what they've achieved, and what need to be done to achieve their goals.
Thanks, Ellie. I think I'll direct this to Caroline.